We have a movie that's written, well, first of all, it's a Las Vegas bachelor party, which has been done a million times in cinema. And it's also written by the two guys who gave us very mediocre movies with Four Christmases and Ghosts of Girlfriends Past.
Yeah, two of the worst movies ever.
Big time. So I don't know whether there was a kind of a fear in you that, what will this work? Or I don't know whether because, it is a sort of a genre that's been done, so you have to really hit something out of the park for that.
Yeah, I think that was what was interesting about it to me is they had a structure for a movie that I thought I'd never seen in a comedy or haven't seen a lot of, which is a movie about an event that we never really see. So in all honesty, that's what attracted me to the idea. That's what attracted me to the project. And then we took it and we rewrote it and did a lot of work on it. And I'm not taking away from they came up with a great idea and we just kind of added to it and kept going.
The Friday opening was at 16.5 million, which was the second biggest R-rated comedy opening of all time. And over the weekend, 45 million. It's the number one movie. I guess it's in the top three, maybe top two of R-rated comedy openings of all time. Would that sort of thing be quite important to you, or do you try not to let yourself be emotionally connected to that? Or
you try not to, but you can't help it because it is show business, and there's so much of it, of the side of it that's business, and you hear about it a lot from agents and people at the studio. So you can't really deny it, but you definitely can't get wrapped up in it because, as oftentimes as it works, which is hardly ever like this, it doesn't work, and then you'd have to get wrapped up in that part of it. So really you just try to make the best movie, and sometimes for some reason they connect on a really large way, and like you said, in the States we did 45 million this weekend, which is a big number for us. My biggest ever, I mean.
But I know you were second only to Sex and the City for that opening day, so for the sequel you really got to make it, they got to go menopausal, and they got to go on a shopping trip, and you got to make the movie boring and just a little bit too long. So just if you really want to hit that market, that's mainly the way to go.
Okay, aim low.
Yeah. That notion too that when a movie like this connects not just with audiences because it's wonderful kind of gags that you're going to catch in the trailer and put a lot of people in, but the critics seem to love it, which is such a rare thing. You get that knocked up. There's occasionally a comedy just hits every market, and I don't know whether you felt it in your bones when you made the movie that this is going to connect, or whether you just don't dare.
You don't feel that, but you start to feel it once you start showing it to an audience. And once we showed it to the first 300, 400 people, I realized that we had something kind of special with it. And the critical response, like you said, has been fantastic so far in the States. I haven't seen anything here yet, but it really has been. And I think that people are really embracing the spirit of the movie. Like even if you think, oh, I've seen this before, or what it is, and before people come in with preconceived notions, it's really not what you think it is, and I think people really like the aggressive spirit of the comedy.
The one, of course, all great comedies sort of need a really good cast in that you kind of go with the guys, and you're blessed here that you don't need a huge star to make this work, and obviously Bradley Cooper's very good, and Ed Helms is very good, and Justin does his role, but really for a lot of people, including me, Zach Galifianakis really sort of is just beyond any kind of expectation because of his left field sense of humour. Was that actually difficult given his left field approach? When you're kind of making a baby embarrassed for the rest of its life, these are kind of tricky things to kind of get away with and know this is the right side of bad taste, or this is.
Well, I mean, you never want to think about a line, if that's what you mean. I don't think about that line. I just think that the key when you're making a movie is to just go for it. You can figure out the line when you're in the editing room, but the last thing you want to do is hire Zach Galifianakis and then rein him in. It's like, why did I hire Zach? You could get anyone to do it then. So you hire guys like this, and you just let them go for it. And I think in the long run, the line kind of presents itself, if that makes sense.
Well, there are those comedians, I suppose Mitch Hedberg and himself and Stephen Wright and all that, they seem to think outside the box, but I always get the impression with Zach, he doesn't even know where the box is anymore. He may have left it at a party or on a bus somewhere, but
yeah.
Was that sort of completely inspiring, or is there, you kind of have to edit a film in the end, like you have to make sense of this?
Well, I mean, yeah, that is his stand-up act, but I mean, I do think Zach actually was acting a character in here, so he was able to fill in a lot of those blanks and live within a box, if you want to say. That I think is not as obtuse as his stand-up, if that makes sense.
Of course, there's already, and absolutely after this weekend, there's going to be a Hangover 2, and the one great kind of truth about Hollywood is that sequels generally suck, so there's always that fear for most people, once they step into the ring again, that they're just not going to have the same fight, and it's just not going to be the same super champ. So I don't know whether that is something that you've already sort of have a good strong feeling about, or whether you just know I'm going to have to put my head down and we're going to have to come up with something.
I mean, well, I kind of have a big idea of what we're going to do, but and one of those things is it's not going to suck. But certainly going into it with that idea.
Good plan.
Yeah, that's the major thing.
Well, that idea with your work, you know, the road trip and Starsky and Hutch obviously was huge, and you look at the kind of run of movies that you've had. Is there a sense of this being your first, what Variety kind of, or New York Times, I think it was Variety said it was your first kind of mature movie. I don't know if that's, I think the line actually.
You sure they said that about
I'll tell
this?
you what, the New York Times said, aspires to be the most grown-up work in Mr. Phillips' unapologetically immature portfolio.
Okay.
That's the line.
They never give you just a compliment.
There's always a bit of a backhand in there
I
somewhere.
mean, that one's a big backhand, but all right.
But
That's
did
the New
you
York
feel,
Times.
I don't know if you felt that this is kind of a different movie for me, or whether it's some movie you've just...
I think as a director, it shows a lot of growth, honestly. I mean, I think if you know anything about filmmaking, there's definitely growth between Road Trip, my first movie, and this film, my last film. And yeah, I mean, but is it the most mature film I've done? Probably. But yeah, the guy's probably right, honestly. It's the most mature movie on a undeniably immature slate of films.
But those early films, very student films like with G.G. Allen and so forth, these are pretty kind of left field, dark, you know, characters you're dealing with, and the documentaries are as a world of a very different remove from this, for example. Was it always in the back of your mind, I'd love someday to get there? Or?
Well, honestly, it was, because I always wanted to be a filmmaker. And if you've seen the G.G. Allen documentary or Frat House, which is another documentary I've done, they're very comic-based documentaries. They're not journalism. There's a real comic edge to those movies that I think I just sort of moved over into the narrative world and keep. But I never saw documentaries as sort of the ugly, redheaded stepchild of filmmaking. I always saw it as the same thing. It's film. You're creating a beginning, middle, and an end. You're letting a little bit out of each character the same way you do in a narrative film. So it was never much of a crazy transition to me.
Rock and roll. I think I'll be giving the friendly finger.
Sorry.
Very nice to talk to you, son.
Thank
Nice
you.
to talk to you.
Great
yeah.
interview. I appreciate
Cheers, man.
it.
You've got I was looking over now.